You ready? Good afternoon, everyone. Joy and I are back again today. Today is Sunday, February the 16th, and we are actually home again in Kingston, Oklahoma, where we originally started. And we drove down yesterday because we were afraid that the roads would get icy today, but it looks like
And they are up there. I just heard there's snow and ice up there.
Yeah, but down here it's sunny.
Sunny and dry.
I know, but anyway, we avoided that yesterday up there. So we're still in the parables. We're getting close to the end of the parables though, but we are still in them. And today we're going to cover two parables. Because the first one is very short.
Oh.
And it's...
No one tells me anything.
Well...
Well, call one last week's parable and one this week's parable.
Well, I guess so, yeah, because we missed again last week. But anyway, as always, I read from the King James Version. Today I'll read from the New King James Version. Because my King James Version Bible is in Mounds, where our other home is. And Joy's going to read out of the Living Bible like she always does. And so there are two parables we're talking about today. One is called the barren fig tree is the first one. And that's in Luke 13, 6 through 9. And the other one is called the wedding feast. And that's in Luke 14, verses 7 through 14. And that one there is quite a bit longer and a little more hard to talk about or understand or relate to. But anyway, I'll start now and read Luke 13, verses 6 through 9. And Jesus said, he also spoke this parable. A certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came seeking fruit on it and found none. Then he said to the keeper of his vineyard, look, for 3 years I have come seeking fruit on this fig tree and find none. Cut it down. Why does it use up the ground? But he answered and said to him, Sir, let it alone this year also until I dig around it and fertilize it. And if it bears fruit, well, but if not, after that you can cut it down.
Sounds like some of our trees. Of course, we have some deer chewing on them.
Yeah, we do. We got a beaver chewing on one of our trees now.
All right. Okay. I can hardly see this. I don't have my right contact in today. I need a little more power. All right, let me see. Then he used this illustration. A man planted a fig tree in his garden and came again and again to see if he could find any fruit on it. But he was always disappointed. Finally, he told his gardener to cut it down. I've waited 3 years and there hasn't been a single fig, he said. Why bother with it any longer? It's taking up space we can use for something else. Give it one more chance, the gardener answered. Leave it another year and I'll give it special attention and plenty of fertilizer. If we get figs next year, fine. If not, I'll cut it down. Well, my question is, if it's been not producing fruit for 3 years, why didn't the gardener get his act together before now and give it some fertilizer years 1, 2, and 3?
I don't know the answer to that question, Joy.
And I don't know how that refers to you and me. Because it refers to people, I'm sure.
Well, it does. The fig tree represents us as Jesus' followers and so forth, or Joe and I, or whoever on this earth, and what we do while we're here and while we're alive and while we are Christians. So that the fig tree represents that. And of course, the keeper of the vineyard is Jesus, or
Well, it
God.
couldn't be Jesus.
It's God.
He wouldn't have a dead fig tree for 3 years. I'm about to sneeze, y'all. Sorry, we're back.
But anyway, all this represents is when you and I as Christians are living on this earth, we are expected, after we accept Christ as our Savior, after we are saved, and while we propose or we claim to be Christians and so forth, and Jesus followers, we are just to not stop ministering God's word to people and all this kind of thing. We are supposed to bear fruit for the kingdom of God. And so we are the fig tree. And if we continue to do that, just be
Figless.
figless. Figless for 3 years, 4 years, whatever, then at some point the vineyard keeper or the vineyard owner is just going to cut the thing down and be done with it. And that is what is represented here. If you don't go out and at least produce some kind of fruit for the kingdom of God, whether it be leading someone else, to salvation, or laying hands on someone and healing them, or ministering to someone that's in need of help of any kind, whether it be mental, whether it be physical, or whatever it is.
Just living your life
Just living your life,
Christ-like.
yes, Christ-like, and doing what the Lord expects you to do. Eventually,
Eventually, you will die.
Eventually, you will die, and then it's too late for you
to produce fruit.
To produce any kind of fruit, yes. So He expects us as followers of Him to carry His message on the earth to whoever we come in contact with that is in need of help or whatever. There's a gazillion different things out there that you can do to continue or to
do unto others.
Well, yeah.
That's the deal. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Right. And love God, number one, and love others second. In that, all the commandments are fulfilled. It's quite simple, really.
Yeah. If you don't do anything but just look upon yourself and all your possessions and all these kind of things for the rest of your life after you become saved, you're really no use to God and His kingdom, So like the fig tree gets cut down, you will be cut down. You'll eventually die, and at this point, I'm not sure whether you're still saved or not. Or
if you ever were.
Well, I don't know. That is a question that needs more research. Some people say once saved, always saved. I'm not a believer in that totally.
Yeah, sometimes sometimes you think you were saved, but you never were. Okay, how about the next one that's talking about a wedding?
The wedding feast.
Yeah.
Okay, and that is in Luke
14. It's right next door.
14.
Starting in verse 7.
Verse 7 through 14.
How about I read mine first in case I decide to start sneezing again?
Okay.
All right, we're going to start in the living this time. Let me have your glasses for a second there. When it starts out with when he noticed, I like to look up above it and say, who noticed? What noticed? Okay, I'm going to start at 14:5 instead of 7. Then Jesus turned to them. Which of you doesn't work on the Sabbath? He asked. If your cow falls into a pit, don't you proceed at once to get it out? Again, they had no answer. When he noticed that all who came to the dinner were trying to sit near the head of the table, he gave them this advice. If you are invited to a wedding feast, don't always head for the best seat. For if someone more respected than you shows up, the host will bring him over to where you were sitting and say, 'Let this man sit here instead.' And you, embarrassed, will have to take whatever seat is left at the foot of the table. Do this instead. Start at the foot. And when your host sees you, he will come and say, 'Friend, we have a better place than this for you.' Thus you will be honored in front of all the other guests. For everyone who tries to honor himself shall be humbled, and he who humbles himself shall be honored." Then he turned to his host. "When you put on a dinner," he said, "don't invite friends, brothers, relatives, and rich neighbors, for they will return the invitation. Instead, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind. Then, at the resurrection of the godly, God will reward you for inviting those who cannot repay you." That is interesting. And so when all these crippled people come, I guess they're going to have to sit on the floor.
No, I don't think so.
They're not going to be honored at all. That's what I would do. Go ahead, babe, read your King James.
I need my glasses.
Oh, you've got to have them. I've only got a 1.5 in today. That's what was in this house. It's not very strong.
Okay, Luke 14, verse 7. I don't have to go up through 5 and 6, but
No.
anyway, Joy's already read that, but anyway.
All right.
Verse 7, so he told a parable to those who were invited. Evidently what happened here was that there was a wedding feast that he invited all these people to. And that's why it's called the wedding feast.
I don't know if Jesus invited them or somebody else
I know,
did.
it doesn't really say that, but anyway. So he told a parable to those who were invited. When he noted how they chose the best places, saying to them, "When you are invited by anyone to a wedding feast, do not sit down in the best place, lest one more honorable than you be invited by him. And he who invited you and him come and say to you, 'Give place to this man,' and then you begin with shame to take the lowest place." In other words, they're going to seat someone else that's
Yeah.
closer to them or whatever, in higher esteem than you are.
Yeah.
So they're going to make you move and put this person in your place, and that's embarrassing to you. But anyway, but when you are invited, go and sit down in the lowest place, so that when he who invited you comes, he may say to you, "Friend, go up higher." Then you will have glory in the presence of those who sit at the table with you. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. Then he also said to him who invited him, "When you give a dinner or a supper, do not ask your friends, your brothers, your relatives, nor rich neighbors, lest they also invite you back and you be repaid. But when you give a feast, invite the poor, the maimed, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed, because they cannot repay you, for you shall be repaid at the resurrection of the just."
So this is why they invented the little name tags. They're not tags that you wear on your shirts. Place, setting, tags. Whenever we used to have a family and we used to have friends, we had a whole bunch of people here. And I would make a name. I can't think of the right name. What do you call them? They're not name tags. They're not place tags. What do you heck?
I don't know, they just go.
But I made them, and people usually loved them. But then I would put the people together that knew each other. Like, I'm not going to put my next door neighbor who has no idea who this person is I grew up with 1,000 years ago. You know, I'm not going to put them together. I'm going to put the people together that know each other. And fathers and mothers with their kids, and cousins with their cousins, and you know what I mean? And so people know, it's not that anybody's any higher status, really. It has more to do with relationship, how you're related to somebody now. God, what are those? Place settings? No, that's the dishes. I'm telling you, wait till you're this old and see what you can't remember. It'll come to me tomorrow sometime, or in the middle of the night.
Well, I think the gist of this whole thing is really not so much that as it is what it's trying to teach you here is that you should be humble.
Yeah.
Wherever you go, whatever you do, whoever you come in contact with, you should be humble and not exalt yourself. Like some people you will meet in life continually, if you talk to them for any length of time, they'll eventually get into how great they are, how many things they've done.
Well, not everybody. Some
I
people.
know, but
some
I mean,
people.
some people are like that, and they
They just
exalt
love to
themselves.
brag about all their stuff.
And so they think they ought to go to the head of the table wherever they go or whatever. And all Jesus is trying to tell you here is that you should always be humble, and not so humble that you let people walk all over you and do those types of things, and take you for granted and all that, but not to be prideful and exalt yourself in front of people and do that type of things. Jesus even said in the Word, or God said this actually, if my people will humble themselves and pray, and then I will, this has nothing to do with this, but they will humble themselves. He expects you to be humble and pray, and he said, then I will save your land, basically. And that, this is kind of off the subject, but that's kind of what's going on today.
The way I see it here is back then, and this is Jesus, and he's your friend, and y'all go everywhere together. And so whatever wedding this is, and whoever's getting married, Jesus is there. I for sure would be inviting everybody I knew, crippled, lame, and blind. You know why?
Well, yeah.
Because they're not going to be crippled, lame, and blind very long once they're in the presence of Jesus. So that would be wonderful. But he's talking about status, some people being more important than other people. I'm wondering back then, what kind of people would be higher than other kind of people?
Well,
Like if you were a teacher or a doctor or a religious leader, or you had more money, the one with the most money gets the best seat.
there's always different classes of people in a civilization. There's always the upper class, the middle class, the lower class.
Yeah, but usually at a wedding, it's usually people like yourself.
Right, I understand
That you know and you associate with. There's always much deeper meaning in these parables.
That's what I mean. In this particular parable, it's a little difficult to kind of understand exactly what he's trying to say here, but what I get out of it is just be humble, not prideful, and all those types of things, and pay attention to the lame, the people who are crippled, and the people that don't have much money or anything like that, because they're always there.
Yeah, some people just hate that. Just hate that. I don't know if I've told you before, but when I was growing up and I was in grade school, there was a girl that was always in my class. Her name was Mary Wilson, and she was always in all my classes, and she had epilepsy. And back then, evidently, they didn't have the treatments for epilepsy that they have now, and many times it would affect her. And she would fall on the floor, and her legs would go up in the air, and her dress would be up in the air, and she'd try to swallow her tongue, and she would slobber, and I would get down on the floor with her, and I would hold her legs down, and I would hold her arms, and I would try to help her till the spell got over. I can't tell you how many times other people, other classmates came to me and said, if you quit hanging around with that Mary Wilson, you could be popular. Yeah, some people act like people with disabilities, or somehow they said, oh dear God, let me be born with epilepsy so I can act crazy on the floor and everybody make fun of me. I mean, what is wrong with people? It must have been their parents. I don't know how a child could act that way or feel that way, because I didn't at all. I felt so sorry for her, and I wanted to help her as much as I could. We remained friends until I don't know, I think I was the first one to move away when I was 16. But if she's still alive now, I'm sure that they've got treatments for that.
Well, that's exactly what he's talking about here, exactly what she just described. You know, some of those kids, you know, kept making fun of her and all those types of things because they were exalting themselves over her, even though
Yeah,
she had
because
this.
they didn't do that.
Well, that's because she was ill with, you know,
And
epilepsy.
in my very young mind, I'm like, what if that was me? What if that was me?
Yeah,
Who would help me? Who would care?
yeah, there you go.
I
That's
just
what he's
don't
talking about.
understand heartless people of any age.
They're out there,
Yeah.
you know.
And so that must be what was going on here.
And you see
And
that,
they were inviting all these high-class people to their wedding to make themselves look important
right,
instead of inviting these other people who really cared about them and would like to have been there.
and they probably didn't even know anyone like that because they thought so
Yeah,
much of their
maybe.
own
They
own
would have had to
selves.
invite
but they never-
strangers.
Yeah, you know, that's what kind of gets a little
It's nice
confusing.
that Jesus taught that.
No. But anyway, says in here that whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. And that's the way God and Jesus looked, you know, at us, basically. You're not to exalt yourself over everybody and all those types of things, but you are to be humbled and love people, regardless of what's wrong with them, what you consider wrong with them. You know, there's always a reason for all these things, for why these people are like they are. Now, some people, you know, just get hurt in auto accidents, and people just get sick for whatever reason.
Jerry's wonderful. The business that we had, he dealt with people like that all the time. Little children who had muscular dystrophy and I don't know how many different things wrong with them. And Jerry was just
Cerebral
precious,
palsy was
just
the worst.
precious to them.
Cerebral palsy.
Worked with them and their parents, and he went into homes you wouldn't want your dog to live in. They're filthy, and the parents were a lot of times drug addicts or alcoholics, and sometimes the kids were deformed and had those diseases because of the parents' drug usage. And Jerry just was wonderful to him. I was always so proud of him.
Now, some people, you know, that I came across were not exactly loving people. You
That's
know?
right.
I mean, they exalted themselves over me, you know, trying to tell me what I was supposed to do.
Well, trying to get him to break the rules.
Trying to get me, and that occurred more than
And other companies would.
Yeah.
Other companies would break the rules.
because there are certain limitations as to what you can give an individual
Right.
for whatever he has wrong
Right.
or she has wrong with them.
In order for it to get paid for,
Yeah,
because
and-
they never paid for it.
Right. But anyway, enough
Yeah.
of that.
So anyway, the thing is, love everybody. And if you know somebody like that with a terrible disability, you know, just thank God for all of the things that you don't have wrong with you and how healthy you are, and at least be willing to help them.
Yeah, in whatever fashion you can.
Yes, in whatever way you can.
Because it all comes back to the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Just put yourself in their position, if you can do that.
Jerry had a patient. I didn't deal one-to-one with the patients. I was the paperwork girl. I was way in the back office in the corner filing claims. So I didn't have the personal relationships with the patients that Jerry did. I got to know some of them. But he had this woman that he took care of that was born with no arms and no legs. And she was, what, in her 60s probably?
60s. Oh yeah, she had Medicare.
Yeah, and I was just shocked. I was going down the hall to get something or talk to an employee or something, and I saw her in her wheelchair in the hall one time, and I stopped to talk to her and met her husband. She had the most wonderful husband. He had arms, he had legs, he was nice looking, he was perfectly healthy, and he married this woman. Married her, and I just thought, what a wonderful, wonderful man you are. And she died, maybe a year or two after that. I remember them being in a restaurant, and she was sitting probably in her wheelchair at the table, and he was on the other side, and I remember him feeding her. And it just broke my heart. And then she died a year or two later, and Jerry said that the husband was just overcome. He was just so, so sad. And I just thought, why can't everybody have that kind of love for other people? It's just, look, it makes the hair stand up on my
Well,
arms. I just had such admiration and respect for that man.
If they did, there would be no wars.
Yeah.
There would be no, thing like that, there would be no people stealing things and all. There wouldn't be no, sin really, honestly. It'd be just gone.
Yeah, just
But
love
that's not the way it
everybody.
is, Satan gets involved in all this mess but anyway,
We better close. You and I start talking and we just go on and on.
well, I know, but anyway, we
So
got,
that's it for today. So we missed last Sunday and almost this Sunday, but it's late in the afternoon. It's 4:30 already. But charged a battery and we were able to get up here and do this for you. So God bless you all and have a wonderful week. And I hope you don't get too much snow and ice.
really, we're here for a week, because we don't want to go back when it's doing all
Yeah.
that, so.
It's better weather here than at the other
It
house.
is, it is. Well, God bless you all, and like Joy said, we hope you have a great week, and hopefully we'll see you next Sunday.
All right. Bye for now.